Hey everyone, my name is Vanitas, and welcome to another deck guide. I just wrapped up my 100 Northern Realms games for the Pro Ladder, and wanted to share with you the deck that took my faction Emyhr to a respectable 1300, with a nearly 80% win rate. I went 2-0 against Craite, 3-2 against Northern Realms, 2-1 against Nilfgaard, 3-1-1 against Monsters, and 5-0 against Skellige with this deck. I was originally inspired by Mega Mogwai's John Natalius Machine's Scorch deck, but after a lot of tinkering, I came up with this, which looks almost nothing like that original deck. Let's jump right into it. The first thing that probably stands out is the number of muster cards. Temerian Infantryman, plus the lone Blue Stripes Commando, is our first choice for thinning the deck. This lets us pull 3 cards straight from the deck, and depending on the number of Kaedwani siege supports we have, it's a 12, 16, 20, or sometimes even a 24-point play. Temerian Infantryman is also a great first play against monsters, and especially decks that would otherwise love to K-ran your Kaedwani siege support, or whatever other first play you would have. Then we get to the Witchers. Witchers got a 1-point buff this patch, so playing them now is an 18, 21, 24, or 27-point play, depending on the number of Kaedwani siege supports we have. 18 points out of nothing is a big play that nobody expects Northern Realms to be able to make, which means you can sometimes make surprising plays to take the lead. Next up, we have the machines. 2 of each Ballista and Battering Ram. It may seem weird to have 2 ofs in the Henselt deck, but we'll get to that shortly. Ballista is our main defense against Swarm, breaking monster eggs and slowing down Blue Stripe scout strategies. A Ballista on board next to a Crewman card also represents a potential 48-point play using Henselt on Kaedwani Siegemaster. Battering Ram, even after the change this patch, can still knock out key cards from your opponent, like Emyhr Enforcers, or put them into range for your Vernon Roach. Next we get to the Kaedwani cards. This deck is even lore friendly, as our leader, King of Kaedwan, Henselt, only has targets in Kaedwani units. The Siege Support is the first card we want on board in most circumstances, as it gives us the crewman tag for our machines, and gives us the ability to buff our Temerian Infantry or Witcher muster plays. I usually try to keep 1 on board, and almost never use Henselt on them, as that's an open invitation to pass, and wastes one of our big late game plays. Keeping 1 on board and unlocked, however, is key to winning long rounds. The Kaedwani Siegemaster is the most important bronze card in this deck. It's our primary Henselt target, a defense against weather since it heals machines, and the main engine for keeping pressure on the opponent in key rounds of the game. The lone Kaedwani Sergeant is a decent turn 1 play in the 2nd and 3rd rounds against non-weather using decks, and being able to clear a single row of weather is usually enough to keep in long rounds against weather-based decks. Now we get to the silver cards, which I think are pretty self-explanatory. Murderbrak is there for emotional support of Villain Trentonmirth, as well as lining up the Scorch effects. Thaler gives us Scorch targets when we don't otherwise have one, helps us get the last play, gets us cards we need, and, you know the drill, does everything a Silver Spy is meant to do. Scorch is our heavy hitter. Whether we use it to blow out an opponent early who isn't expecting it, or save it for the last play of the game, many games come down to this card. Sometimes it can look to our opponent like they're going to win handily, only to see a 40-point swing due to just this 1 card. And finally, the golds. Villain Trentonmirth is our second Scorch effect. Doubling up on Scorch effects helps win games against players who see the Scorch coming and try to disrupt it. If we line up 2 cards to 17 points, and our opponent buffs 1 up to 20, we can still get a 45-point swing with the 2 Scorch cards and win the game. Next, Shani. There are 2 main ways I use Shani. Either to resurrect an early Kaedwani siege support to have that option available in the first round, or to resurrect a Kaedwani Siegemaster that I used in the first or second round to set it up for a Henselt play in the 3rd round. The nerf to Shani makes her quite a bit worse, even in this deck, since our resurrected card is less protected, but she is still vital for this strategy as we only have 2 Henselt targets. Vernon Roach combos well with most of the cards in this deck. The machine cards can help line up opposing cards to maximize value, and the siege supports buff the Blue Stripes Commandos tokens that he summons. Dijkstra is the final card in this deck, and the one I'm least sure about myself. The risk with running so much removal is that sometimes in the last round, your opponent can just outscore you. Dijkstra helps soften that blow by getting you the last few cards that you might need for victory. He also combos well with Witchers, letting you mulligan away a Witcher in the last round if you have Dijkstra in hand, knowing that you're almost certainly going to pull one when you play Dijkstra. He's almost strictly a round 3 play, however, as you need to be intimately aware of the chances he pulls a blank. And finally, to our leader Henselt. Harkening back to the days of Reaver Hunters, this is the rare Henselt deck where he is used as a finisher rather than as an early power play and deck thinning card. We're almost always going to use Henselt in the last round to target Kaedweni Siege supports, and if we're not saving him, it's because we're using him in round 1 where our opponent overcommits, and it's okay for us to also commit a big play. And that wraps it up for the deck intro. We're going to look at 3 games for my climb today, and I'm going to comment on my decisions, so let's get into some games. Alright, so for the first game, we're going to look at a Skellige game. I was 5-0 against Skellige. It's by far the easiest matchup since they're pretty easy to predict overall. Alright, so first we're going to look at the mulligans. We want to get rid of the Blue Stripes Commando, obviously. We don't want more than 1 Temerian Infantryman, and we don't want more than 1 Witcher. After that, it's a risk whether you're going to get one of those extra cards you don't want. Now here I can either mulligan away the Witcher, since I know I'm either going to get a Witcher or something else back, and we've already mulliganed away the Temerian Infantryman and the Blue Stripes Commando, so there are no dead draws. And since we still had Taller as well as 2 gold cards, I decided to mulligan it away. That could go either way though, it doesn't matter too much. We lead off here with the Kaedweni Siege support, as usual. It gives us the flexibility to use machines. Yeah, it's just what we want to start out with. It's fine if he gets blown away. We kind of expect... Most decks now have ways to get rid of 1 or 2 cards, 1 or 2 bronze cards, so we don't mind too much. I like to go for Shani here. He kills it again. Most decks don't have 2 ways to kill, or don't have a way to kill an armored up Kaedweni Siege support though. At this point, I'm not sure if I'm going to be in this round super long, but I want to get these cards out. We never want to go to the second round with both all of our Temerian Infantrymen and our Witchers in hand, since they can clog up our hand in the second and third rounds with more mulligans. We want to thin as much as possible. Okay, so now we see what direction his deck is going. Jenga Fret is going to be one of his big finishers. He's probably going to have 1 or 2 other big finishers, and we're going to try to scorch them down. We're down 23 points here, so we need to be able to make up these 20 or 24 points in 2 plays, if we like to make a play here. And I'm thinking, how can I make 24 points without sacrificing a lot of my cards? Is there any way I can make 24 points without giving up my strong cards? He's already used his hero, or he's already used his leader, and 2 golds, so we decide just to go to the next round. We can mulligan away anything we want here, since getting a Witcher is fine and there's no other cards that we ever have to worry about. I like to mulligan away the battering ram since there aren't very many battering ram targets in the Skellige decks, since they're usually pretty high value cards. And we see him protect his two strength card here. This is one of the ways that Witchers can come in handy. So instead of just dry passing, our opponent here decides to go with an Emyhr to get some carryover, and we're able to just sort of blow him away with the Witchers. So now he's kind of forced to play out this round. I like to go with the Ballista here. At this point, I'm thinking, you know, when's this guy gonna get out of this round? Like, he should probably get out pretty quick. He's already got the carryover. What's he trying to prove? We haven't used any of our strong cards yet. Here, I'm kind of forced to use the Siege Master, even though I want to save it for the last round. We've already used Shani, so now we don't have any great Henselt targets. But we do have both of our Scorch effects in hand, Taller, and Murderbrak, so it doesn't really matter if we get a big Henselt or not. And now that I see that he's going all in on this round, I decide to just Henselt this round. And we can knock out his carryover and basically kill everything on his board. Now we're up a card, have Taller, so we can have 2-card advantage in the last round. And this is just a fantastic position to be in. See how it took us from, how the Henselt Siege Master combo took us from not a great situation to just blowing this guy out totally, where he's forced to pass. That is the power of that combo. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the 3rd round. Usually it will be, but sometimes it's important to just take him out here. So if we look over at our graveyard, we've used our muster cards, which are mostly just thinning. We've used Shani, and we've used our Henselt play. But that's it. We haven't used our Scorch effects, we haven't used Vernon Roach. We're in a pretty good spot. We forced him out of a round, and we barely used anything except our Henselt play, which we weren't even counting on anyway, necessarily. Here we choose the Ballista over the Siege support, since it's going to be really important to be able to line up the Scorch effects. We know he can resurrect some big plays. And here's his first resurrection. He goes for the big guy early. At this point, I'm still not sure exactly what his play is going to be, but we have a pretty good Roach target, so go for that. Anytime you can take a free 17-point swing with an empty board, go for it. We also took out one of his damaged units, so weakened his play with the Berserker Marauder. I probably should have played Dijkstra first here, but Ballista was fine also. We're going to play Dijkstra here, and with our last 3 plays go Villain Trentonmirth, Murderbrak to set up the Scorches, and then Scorch. Yeah, I should have done Dijkstra first. I think I might have just misthought and thought I was going to get Siege Masters and not Siege Supports. If it was Siege Masters, we would want the ballista out first so that they'd have a target. But since it's siege supports, we should have Dijkstra'd first. Okay, we see him setting up for probably a hailstorm. This is a pretty safe place to drop Villain Trentenmirth. And we see him drop Hailstorm, and since we have 2 Scorches, we just Scorch 1 now, and then line up the 3 8s. Since Villain Trentenmirth can't hit himself, 7 is our top card. And even though we were down, 40 points a turn ago, now we're down 4 and about to Scorch 32 of his points. And that's that game. Next up for review is this game against the number 37 ranked overall pro ladder player, Zebinator. He's playing... Okay, so this is, we have all 4 of our gold cards in our opening hand. So what we're going to do is elect to just mulligan away for, yeah, this. It's pretty easy to see. So starting out, we're not sure if this is going to be a normal Spies deck, which is Emyhr Spies with the buff up to 7 is pretty popular, or starting to get popular. And here we see it's Spies and it's not Mill. I throw Taller out now because I know we can overcome this with Witchers if we need to. I expect him to try to take this down again. If he gets a Spy into Enforcers, which he does, kind of lucky for him. So we're in a fairly bad spot to start. Just in case we have to get out of this round early, I want to thin the deck. This also, a 12-point play is not bad. And it still hides our Witcher's play, which I'm sure he's not expecting. The Cantarella here is really strong because now he gets us back on even cards, and he takes out... Okay, but this was a mistake. He took out that card so that I could not John Natalis into Commander's Horn. That is smart, but I decided just to pass. I kind of snap decide to pass, because with 2 Enforcers on board, I just don't want to play this round. So it ends up being a tie going into round 2. The reason for the snap pass is we have our Witcher combo already. We have all 4 of our gold cards. And yeah, so what more could I want, right? So tie going into the second round. I'm sure he was not expecting this. I look for a mulligan. It's too big of a risk that I mulligan into another Witcher. I probably could have mulliganed the Witcher away to use with Dijkstra later, but I decided to go the safe route, keep the Witcher, and use it as my as a power play in this turn, guaranteed. And then Dijkstra will be... I'll know more about what's going to come out of Dijkstra. So we get the siege support out. He has no way to take it down immediately. So we're going to use the combo with the Witcher. It's also good to get the siege support out early against Spies. So we see him add the agent tag, the spy tag, to the siege support, but it's at 6+2 armor, which means he can't take it out with a Nausicaa Brigade. I decide to go with a safe Witcher play, just in case he decides to minnow early. I think I do. Yeah. No other play really made sense to me. So he's playing out all of his emissaries as much as he can. And then he grabs the siege support, which he maybe should have done earlier, but I don't know. It's a fine play though. But I don't want him to have that siege support, so I'm going to try to take it down. This may not look like the most efficient, but what we're doing here is getting the if we have the ballista out, then we know that our Dijkstra is going to be fine. We know that even if we pull the Siege Master, it has a target, which we find right here. And we decide to attack the Dijkstra because we can set up 2 3 hit point units for the Roach. And then this is a pretty good pull, another siege support. Maybe shouldn't have put it on the back row, maybe should have put it next to one of the other crewmen. We see him go with the strong play of getting a second Celiac for even more spies, which is great for him because he has 2 Emyhr brigades. We set up perfectly for this, and the extra siege support helps out a lot. Here we're feeling pretty good. We have our Henselt ready with the Siege Master. We have another Ballista. We have both Scorches, and we have another crewman unit. I'm not sure about this play. He's not able to take out the Siege Master. I can see why he wants to, and just in case he has another Emyhr Enforcers, I decide to go right away for the Henselt play. And try to line up the Scorch. Alright, for our last opponent, we're going to be doing a Monsters opponent. This is Your Mother Ate My Dog, a very strong Monsters player with about a 1350 faction MMR. So this is, against monsters, a control monsters deck. This version of the deck fares better, I think, against monsters than Mega Mogwai's deck. I had a lot of trouble beating monsters with his deck. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's just the small sample size, but I have a better time with this deck, I'll say that. Mulligans here are kind of hard. It's okay to mulligan away the Siege Master, because we always want to use it in the last turn, pretty much, against monsters. And since we're forced to go first, we play the Temerian Infantryman to avoid the K-Ran play, because we know if we play the Siege support, there's a chance he just eats it, gets 10 points, and we're down 10, and we need to make that up in the first round. It's not a good position to be in. So I think he's a little curious what to do. That's my guess at this point, at least. If I don't have a K-Ran play, what do I do? So he does the only thing he knows how to do, which is play the instant win card. A little surprising that he doesn't have Roach in the deck. I think Roach is basically necessary. And he also looks like he has a the Foglet in hand. Which is unlucky for him. Even though he doesn't have the Foglet, thinking about clearing the weather anyway. But I decide against it. Clearing the weather, first of all, not a big deal. There's no Foglet out. It's only 2 points of damage. And since it's the highest card on the row, we can always heal it if we had a Siege Master. Which we don't, but he doesn't know that. Anyway, it puts us 9 points ahead, and that's a safe position to be in. This guy takes a bit of time to make his move. And we see it's a consume hybrid deck. Most of these decks are consume hybrid, but there are some movement decks with the drowners. I prefer the drowner decks personally, playing them, but the Vran decks are also very strong. We have the Ballista ready just in case he puts out a Solano Harpy. We can pop the eggs. I decided to pass just to not give him any room with the Bran. There's actually a few different routes we could go. First, the reason for the pass is I think he probably only has 2 Fogs in the deck, Dagon and Woodland Spirit. So if we can get rid of one with a pass, that's a good play. I don't know. That was an interesting pass. I might not do it every time. I might play the siege support and think, this guy probably doesn't have a drowner because he's playing Vran. It doesn't fit. We have a Witcher in the hand, but I decided to go for a mulligan anyway, to just try to improve the hand. That's another curious case. I'm not exactly sure what I was thinking there. I had a fine hand, I guess. I just wanted a chance to grab Scorch, Dijkstra, Villentret, and Emyhr. Not exactly sure what he's thinking about here. So he plays the carryover card, and we go with the Witchers over the top. So he could have just passed, we go over the top with the Witchers. It's almost always a good play to take the lead when we can. I think he was expecting to play the Necker and then pass, but yeah, going over the top with the Witchers is great. And 6 points is nothing to sneeze at, so he can't play Solano Harpy. If he plays another Ekamara, he has to eat one of his Neckers, which is kind of a waste. So at this point he's thinking, okay, do I play out this round? Or do I just take the card, the turn advantage, and go? We trade Spies. We don't have either of our Scorch cards, but against monsters it's not quite as important. And now I see, okay, he's just trying to play out this round using as little to commit as possible. I play one siege support, maybe draw out a lock or something. We see he has 2 Harpies in hand. This is what you get to do though when you get to play first. He had a bad hand, but it's okay, because he can just throw away his bad cards, force me to play my better cards, and then go to the last round with whatever hand he wants. I play the Siege Master out here because I'm going to Shawnee it next round and use it with the Henselt play. And then we see him pass, which is good. I didn't want to commit any more cards. We can clear one of his weathers. We're in pretty good position. We just really want to draw a Scorch. But if we don't have a Scorch, Ballistas are the best. Actually, against monsters, Ballistas is probably even better. And we'll see why. Yes, he might ran out a giant Necker based play. Uses his fog. He finally gets to pull his foglet. This is just an obvious play. Always clear the fog as soon as you can against this deck on the third round. If it's the first round, you think about it, right? Because if it's going to be a short round, you could just end the round. Here I'm thinking, okay, I wish I had Scorch. Using the Manticore just to eat it twice, once from the hand and once from the graveyard. It's just a really powerful play, but is so open to Scorch. Unfortunately for me, no Scorch. We don't want him to get any strength out of these eggs, so we pop them. And we also do damage to the 5s. And the reason we do that is to set up the Vernon Roche play on the 2 3s. Get maximum value. This guy thinks quite a bit, but that's fine. Yeah, here is where we really wish we had Scorch. That's a 34-point play. But we don't have it. So can we win without Scorch? That's the question. So playing this deck with 2 Scorches, I mean, you kind of think, right? Definitely, its Scorches are the game ender against a strong, powerful deck that can get out 17s with just silvers. And if you think about it, we only get 18 from our Witchers, which are a silver. And we have to use 3 silver spots for them. So, I avoid a big potential loss here if he pulls the Siege Master out of the graveyard there. I decide, no, I don't want to risk him playing another Archgriffin and realizing that he needs to pull that card out. So, there we go. I play it right away from the Shawnee. He had another Necker in hand rather than a Bran. Unfortunate for him. He's had a few unfortunate draws, but on the other hand, I didn't have the Scorch that could have taken out 34 points. What we see here, I'm just kind of running away with it because the Ballistas get so much value every turn. I didn't mention it, but saving Murgabrack for the Succubus is always something I recommend. It wouldn't have made a difference in this game, and because I mean we had an extra 30 points there anyway, but it's a good thing to keep in mind. A lot of the monsters players run Succubus these days. Alright, and that's it for today. If you like the video, like the video. If you thought it sucked, give it a thumbs down, and to see more, subscribe. I'll see y'all next time.